This is the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metriscart. Hi, all. Welcome back to the Digital Shelf Insider podcast of Metriscart. I'm your host, Shreshta, and today we are joined by the managing partner and founder of GrowByData, that's Prasanna Dhungel, and we're going to discuss about how LLMs are really changing the discoverability for brands and how it's actually redefining the workflows also for them, for the internal teams. So I'm excited for this conversation because this is a very fast-paced side of the industry right now, AI, and every day there's some new discussion happening, reading a lot of stuff around it, and there's no day that goes by without seeing or researching about AI and how it changes things for brands both in the B2B and B2C side. So let's hear it out from Prasanna. Hi, Prasanna. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Joy, for this opportunity to share my insights. And I really look forward to the conversation. It's a fascinating topic for the times.
Definitely. Yeah. There's so much being discussed about AI. Every day there's some new update that's rolling out. And even as a B2B marketer myself, I look at AI from the lens of bringing visibility and discoverability for Metriscard. Let's shift the focus to what we are going to discuss today, which is about consumer brands with whom both GrowByData as well as Metriscard works very closely with. And I must also add that there's a lot of debate and research that says that AI is not taking up the space that we actually see out there. I'm not so sure about this, but the first question that I have for you is like, how exactly are LLMs like ChatGPT and Gemini changing the way consumers discover products online, like both on and off Google?
That's a very important question we think about and try to answer to clients all the time.
Yeah.
If we step back and think about how we sourced and discovered maybe even a year or two ago, it was primarily through Google, as well as some amount of social discovery and retail media networks. Now, many of us, many consumers all around the world are using ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, really to ask deeper questions and understand. Like, for example, you and I are having a conversation, Joy, and I could ask you, hey, Joy, what's a great place to have coffee that I can sit down and have this conversation? That's how we talk as humans. And so we've evolved to asking those types of questions on LLMs, and the results are very helpful.
Right.
What I am and why I think consumers are doing this, it's saving a lot of time. We don't need to click, and then try to figure it out. And so it's really changed the way that we are discovering and learning about brands and really purchasing and experiencing products.
Yeah. Uh, The other question that I had about is how exactly are brand manufacturers and agencies rethinking their SEO as well as retail media strategies in response to AI-driven search engines out there?
Yeah. So previously, a lot of focus um, may have been on keyword research. I'll use the word mayhem because
Mhm.
that was the de facto model, but some of the more advanced SEO practitioners were just using different tactics, right? But historically, it was keyword research and just keyword injection into content. Now, that alone doesn't suffice. You really have to understand the consumer needs. It's like the way I describe it is, you do market research on what your buyers really want, why they come to you, and you have content with maybe headings as questions, with certain schema as well as certain structured content, and you're really trying to describe the problem and how to solve the problem for consumers.
Yeah.
And that's what's getting picked up. And so I'll give you an example. I was recently doing a search about, something for our kitchen. It just broke after years, and I was going into ChatGPT and asking. And what I found interesting was, hey, I was asking like, what are good kitchen sink grinders for that are durable, that are affordable, right? And so what I was finding is I was getting comparison content. I was getting information from Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's. I was getting content from Reddit. I was getting content from um, publisher sites that talked about it. And so the way your brand is exposed is not just through one channel now,
Yeah.
it's through various channels. And so if we think about SEO, just generally the idea of getting in front of getting your brand out there,
Yeah.
you have to have authoritative content that's helpful to consumers, that answers a lot of questions, and you have to be talked about favorably, on social channels, right? Reddit and so on. You have to have the right kind of content on Amazon. Your PDP needs to be strong. Your inventory needs to be updated. And so um, you just have to be strong across many different channels.
Yeah.
You have to be accurate, and you have to be answering questions the way that consumers are now increasingly using LLMs. And so it's really, the need for folks that do SEO or just content is important because your historical just content the way it is, it's not going to work anymore. And so whether it's creating new content or molding your old content to align with the changing times, folks who can do that are really super critical, I think.
Definitely. That brings me to this interesting thought that I had, that doesn't it also mean that we have truly become omni-channel at this point of time than ever before?
You're right. So I've always heard this concept of total search.
Hmm.
So we worked in Google for years. We very strong in Google, and so in Google, the idea was paid search and organic. As organic was expanding, like in retail, you have the free product listings, you have videos, you have things to know. So we were advocating this concept of holistic search, total search.
Yeah.
Then, the idea was, we were searching in marketplaces in Amazon and Target and Walmart. And so retail media network was also important.
Yeah.
Now, and then increasingly over the last 2+ years, as Google started to show Reddit and
Mhm.
Quora on the SERP, it was important that you were also visible there
Yeah.
because that was being considered by us directly on Google site or by going to these sites. And now you're right, with LLMs also a way for us to search and discover, we also have to be out there. So it is this idea of total search or
Yeah.
total visibility and being able to keep a pulse of
Yeah.
your visibility at the most important channels.
Right.
And I will say that, which is what are the most important channels that are rising? You have to understand that, number one. Number two, you have to understand what is being visible in these channels. Like, for example, in Google, like the free product listings was really visible.
Yeah.
Whereas on ChatGPT and Perplexity, that's SERP. I'll use the word SERP,
Yes.
is also evolving. So you really need to understand how that's evolving, and you have to make sure that you are on top. So it's like understanding what's important, understanding what is showing up, and number three, it's understanding whether you're visible or not.
For sure. How do you think the performance benchmarks are changing, especially with LLMs around for brands? It's just not about the share of search that they have on retail sites or on Google Search. So how is that changing?
I like to say you need your share of voice across channels
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So you need your holistic share of voice on Google, especially above the fold.
Yeah.
You need to have your share of voice across marketplaces, and then you need to have your share of voice on LLMs. For example, when you ask a non-branded question, you might ask, "What are good electric vehicles?" You want you want your brand to be considered there,
Yeah.
and listed there. Number one, and number two, you want to be mentioned favorably.
Yeah.
For example, if you're Toyota
Yeah.
and you are not mentioned, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Number two, if you are mentioned, you care to understand whether it's coming from your side or from someone else's side. This is almost like number one. And then the other equally important thing is, okay, fine, you're Toyota and you're mentioned, but if people aren't talking good about you, it actually has a
Yeah. That's the
detrimental impact on your brand perception. So this optics around your brand perception is also important, I believe, in the LLM world more so. I mean, it was always important,
yeah.
with reviews and rankings, but people are just browsing through the answer. And so the way your brand is summarized,
Yeah.
it's summarized right there, and it has a big optics. And so you need to be considering all of these things in our point of view.
Makes sense. And now I'm reading that there are many legacy brand manufacturers like Nestle and Unilever doing a sort of good job at bringing in AI into their systems. They're testing it. They're doing the literacy work across teams, and they're getting somewhere right, pivoting towards the future. So, how do you have some real world examples of brands that are really, kind of getting adapting to their content, pricing, assortment strategies to stay ahead with LLMs?
Yes. So using LLMs is almost becoming like a must-have
Yeah,
for all brands,
yeah,
B2B, B2C. Almost like if you're not using LLMs, you have almost a competitive disadvantage
yeah,
because it might just take you longer, it might just be more expensive, and so on. But to come back to your question, what we've seen is definitely you can use LLMs to get content ideas.
yeah.
So one great example is y- your teams might hit a wall in terms of having ideas.
Right.
You might have a designer, and he or she might be the best in the world, but sometimes they just hit a wall.
Yeah,
And so what I've seen LLMs do is when you share an idea, they give a concept and it just opens the creative person mind to new avenues. I'm not saying you have to use that, but at least it's another avenue to get creative ideas.
right.
And I've seen brands and agencies use that for the creative side. Could be like images, videos, what have you. The second side of it is from a content generation standpoint, it's wonderful for you to again get ideas
Right.
on how you might be doing market research on a pricing topic, for example.
Mm.
And so rather than going to 20 different sites, you're asking deeper and deeper questions and you're getting responses. And so it's almost like you're having a export management consultant or an expert market researcher who works with you,
Yeah,
who is giving you ideas. And so the quality of the content you can create by using not just one LLM, but multiple LLMs is amazing. Right.
right.
So so coming back, I think it's really helpful for market research. Now, from a creation and publishing standpoint, I mean, there's some of the basics of just checking it for
Yeah,
errors, etc. is really out there. I'm not sure, you want to use it for content writing
yeah,
because
yeah.
it just it removes the authenticity of the content. It really removes your brand voice and
Right.
your personality.
Yeah,
So that part, I'm not sure. I've seen a great solution. Yes, people have used it, but generally after a while, Google or the LLMs like really ding you after an initial source. But that said, I do think that it's invaluable from an idea generation standpoint,
makes
for
sense.
especially on written and digital content. So you had a question, or a comment, Joy. It sounds
Oh,
like.
yeah, yeah. I was thinking about product listing optimization. Does it really help to sort of for brands to define or kind of refine a couple of things out there in their listings?
So LLMs, especially the LLM responses on shopping, for example,
Yeah,
or product listings, really are tapping into, I like to say, feeds.
yeah,
So, like for example, when you are listing on Google, for you to get like a lower cost, or just on your paid shopping with higher quality scores, or just for you to benefit from free merchant listings, the quality of the feed is really important. And
yes,
so likewise, what's important is quality of the feeds is equally important,
yeah,
right? So you want to make sure that it's top shape. And then likewise, the other is you want to make sure your inventory, your pricing is up to date. Some of the local nuances is also included on the feeds. For example, I would do a search in Boston, around, let's say, running shoes near me. And so if DSW wants to appear on my response, then the feed that DSW is sending must be well structured along with a lot of the local aspects, embedded on the feeds. And my view is LLMs really like they're reading structured content. And
Yeah.
so the richer the content is, the more diverse it is, the more accurate it is, then the more competitive it is. I
Yeah,
think it really that's what stands out.
for sure. Uh, we spoke about retail media a bit. How do you think retail media is evolving when AI generated answers might kind of sidestep the traditional sponsored listings?
So your question is how is retail media evolving for sponsored,
Yeah,
essentially?
yeah,
Yeah. Um, so what I've seen is like let's take an example of Amazon.
yeah,
Right? Amazon sponsor Amazon or just about any other retail media network.
yeah,
You have your free listings out there where some of the structured data is important, which we just talked about. Then, inclusion on editorial recommendation and others, there are certain factors, but a large part of the Amazon retail space, product listing space, retail space goes to sponsor on the top or on the side and what have you. Now, what I've also seen is Amazon's injecting, LLMs in the response.
yeah,
So rather than me browsing, I ask a question and Amazon's showing various options for me. For example, I was just searching for what are good walking shoes to walk the whole day. I like to walk, and so I was like, okay, fine. What's a good walking shoe?
yeah,
Uh, and then I was getting multiple options out there.
yeah,
And at least in the few sources I didn't really see sponsored. I might have missed it.
yeah,
But ultimately, I do think being recommended on that is coming. It's like almost years ago on the Amazon page before there were a lot of ads.
yeah,
You ask a question and you get a listing, and then Amazon sponsored ads came into the mix
yeah,
to be able to be visible there. And so, if people are now going to be using the shopping assistants
yeah,
on retail networks, and that's the future, and some of these shopping assistants get integrated to LLMs,
yeah,
uh, I mean, I do see the world where it's a combination of high quality um, organic free listings
yeah.
as well as sponsored listings who qualify. So some of the same concepts around like Amazon Buy Box or Walmart Buy Box, I see them being used in the LLM responses on marketplaces. And there's obviously going to be opportunities, or I'm sure the marketplaces, retail media networks will figure out a way to monetize. If that's where people are going, then a large part of their business and businesses is at risk. And so, for credible brands and sellers, why would the retail media network not recommend? Is my point of view, but we'll see.
That makes sense. I have one last question for you, and that's really about the kind of blind spots and pitfalls that brands need to take care of or aware of when optimizing for LLM driven search.
Yeah. So you have to um, I worry that just focusing on keyword research or just narrowly focusing on content on your site
Yeah,
or just a few sites you optimize might blindside you.
yeah,
That's the so one of the topics that you nicely noted is it's all around total search. It's all about being visible
yeah,
across different lenses. It's all about multi-attribution and so on. And so one of the problems I see is if you are not aware of what LLMs and Google and retail media networks are exposing
yeah,
and where they are trying content for. And you're just focused on, let's say, Google My Business or your website
yep,
or some basic channels,
yeah,
you you might not see that Reddit, for example, I'm just making it up, right? Or some other site is really strongly now being pulled
for
into the response. And so if you don't have an initiative to um, be on top of these channels, like for example, if there's a lot of chatter and bad news about your brand on social and you do nothing about it,
yeah,
then yes, your brand may be visible. Going back to the Toyota example, you as Toyota may be visible,
Yeah.
but people are really saying bad things about you on a social channel,
Yeah.
then you're blindsided.
Mm.
And so, as a shopper, think about it, right? You and I, when we read, we're like, oh, yeah. And it's like, but it says this is a bad brand. It just summarizes, right? It doesn't go into the details.
Right.
You could really be blindsided and your your brand could go off a cliff. That's like the biggest worry, which is it's changing so fast.
Yeah.
What we know of these LLMs, as well as Google, as well as retail media network, is significantly changing. What it will show, we don't know.
Yes.
So it's important to have a pulse of what's showing up. It's really important to understand kind of who is showing up, who's winning, and it's important to have a team or multiple teams that are staying on top, experimenting, and trying to be ahead versus kind of be more chilled and kind of do whatever you were doing in the past. That's the biggest blind side I foresee brands potentially facing.
For sure. I totally agree with you on that. So we've come to the end of the episode, and it was wonderful having you, Prasanna. Totally enjoyed this conversation, and I'm sure our audience would feel the same. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Joy. This is a fascinating topic for fast changing times.
Yes.
And I'm sure we could talk for hours, but I appreciate the short conversation and hope it was helpful to all.
We've come to the end of the episode. If you loved what you just listened to, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We'll be back next Monday with a really awesome guest. Stay tuned until then.